Right, in the last video, we were looking at fixed exchange rate systems. So I'm going to sort of very briefly talk through floating exchange rate systems. I'm just going to make use of the notes, which you can hopefully see in front of you now. So under a fixed exchange rate system, the biggest benefit was the certainty and the stability that it could create. So that means that when you allow a currency to float, different factors that influence the demand and supply, the currency can appreciate and it can depreciate. Well, think about some of the potential drawbacks of that. Okay, well, in Britain at the moment, our currency is depreciated because of what's happened with Brexit, and that is pushing up food prices and creating cost-push inflation. If you had a fixed exchange rate, that wouldn't be happening now. A lot of people say as well that a floating exchange rate will create uncertainty. Firms that look to export or import, whatever they do, they're going to be affected by currency value changes. One that's rapidly yo-yoing up and down will make trade very difficult. So if you've got less trade, you've got all the drawbacks of relying on domestic production again, missing out on benefits of efficiency and economies of scale, bigger markets for your goods and services, cheaper imports, because the currency is yo-yoing up and down all the time, wiping off things like absolute and comparative advantage. A lot of people say as well that it creates a lack of discipline. Okay, we get to the point in the economy where we think, you know what? If we have high inflation, it's not the end of the world. Okay, we know under a fixed exchange rate system that we can't rely on the exchange rate changing, falling to boost exports. Under a floating one, you could argue then, well, we can't. It doesn't really matter if we've got high inflation, and what will happen is the currency will get weaker, and that will help our firms overcome lack of efficiency compared to major rivals. Also, as well, there's no guarantee that a weaker currency will actually lead to your exchange rate your balance of payments improving anyway. It could, in theory, in the short run, get worse. If you're reliant on imports and they become more expensive because your currency's fallen in value, you're still going to buy them. You are price inelastic for them. This could create an even bigger problem in the domestic economy and the trade deficit getting bigger in the short run. But benefits of it, in the long run at least, big benefit of a floating exchange rate is that it will lead to your balance of payments equaling zero. Okay, so it does create problems in your balance of payments. It also allows monetary and fiscal policy to be used to do with domestic economy. So under a fixed exchange rate system, a weaker currency, you had to raise interest rates. You've no longer got to do that anymore. You can focus on what the domestic economy needs. So, for example, you're in recession. Ultimately, you're going to lower interest rates. That will lead to your currency getting weaker. We would say, so what? That could actually be quite good. It could boost export demand across the world. Further to that as well, because we're not maintaining the fixed exchange rate, there's no need for governments to hold big amounts of foreign currency reserves. It means that money can be freed up to invest and spend into the economy instead. So, if you were looking at a comparison between the two systems, you've got this. Okay, so you've got to think about, well, which one will allow us to deal with shocks that might happen in the economy. I'm going to pause for a second to let you read what's on the board. So under a fixed exchange rate system, you lose control of monetary and fiscal policy. It's all designed, or monetary at least anyway, to maintain the fixed exchange rate. If you've got a recession, well, you can't lower interest rates. But under a floating exchange rate system, you can. Okay, so a floating one would give you more flexibility to deal with different shocks. Now, in terms of stability, here, I think you would argue that a fixed exchange rate could be better. No or very little uncertainty with exchange rates will mean that it's more likely you can do more trade, so you get benefits of more international trade. Under a floating one, big problem. Domestic firms have got to buy futures in currency to guarantee what they're going to be paying for imports. These things are expensive. Under a fixed one, they wouldn't have to worry about these. Okay. In terms of macroeconomic policy, now a lot of people say that what a fixed exchange rate will do, it will promote financial discipline. You can't rely on the currency value changing to get you out of problems. So overall, look at this. Which is better, fixed or floating? I'm not entirely sure. I think history would tell us fixed exchange rates are very difficult to maintain. So what we might want to focus instead is trying to minimise fluctuations in our exchange rate under a floating system.